is all fine and fun about it. It's at times.
But then Shinzo Abe shows up and he's like, "You don't know, talk about this."
How dare you? It was funny in kindergarten when we all poked each other's butts, but no more.
Oh no, that childhood game is so funny.
Like,
what is up, internet?
No. Trying to bait. But yeah, like no, like as much as we do this whole podcast and I love anime, and I would like to visit Japan. I wouldn't want to live there.
No, I feel you. Same. I think, again, you and I have never visited Japan. I've never been to Asia. You have probably never been to Asia. Asia. But Japan is a really rough society when it comes to, like, judgment. And it's like, I would love to visit there, and I feel like they're a very friendly, touristic country, and they love that. There's shitload of their income. But, big but, I'm not Japanese. You're not Japanese. They're a very nationalist society.
Yes, they are.
And, like, even though I'm Asian, I'm not Japanese. Like, at the end of the day, Vietnamese is, like, on the totem pole of Asian culture.
They won't kick you going past the door, unlike the Chinese, but...
No.
They won't give you breakfast.
Yeah. I'm a low rung. You know what I'm saying? Like, at the bottom rung, we got, like, Laos, Filipino, Vietnamese people, like Islander Asians, and then you have like at the tippy top, the Chinese, the Japanese, the Koreans, and they all hate each other anyway. So
I mean, to be fair, so do we.
Well, not we. I mean, you Caucasian folk.
Oh, us Caucasian folk hate each other.
Yeah.
We brought the whole world into our hate of each other twice.
What is up, internet? It's your boy Brando and Christopher House, and welcome to another episode of the Otaku Remix Podcast. Chris, what the heck are we talking about today?
Today we're talking about Violet Evergarden, charming 13-episode Netflix animated series. Although not originally published on Netflix, you were telling me?
Yeah. I believe it was serialized somewhere in the winter season of last 2018, but then debuted on Netflix in the summer, like July-ish last year.
Okay, cool. And so, I just watched it, like, maybe a week ago or so. And we just kind of wanted to give our thoughts on it, why you should watch it, and a little bit of a summary, but not much.
Great series.
Yeah, honestly, probably in my top 5 animes of all time right now.
You told me that.
Yeah, like it's just so appealing to me. We were talking about like fantasy worlds, and this one in particular just sits so well with me.
Yeah, I know when we started, you were like, "This is Final Fantasy-esque," and I'm like, "You gonna have to tell me about this." When there's a microphone between the two of us.
We can't lose this. It really does remind me of specifically Final Fantasies 1 through 6 and 9, even though I haven't played all of it, 9 all the way through. But yeah, it's just like the world has this very early 20th century kind of vibe to it. And although it still has like a few elements of steampunk in it, which give it that fantasy little twist.
Yeah, little tweaks here or there. Violet's design, like her mechanical arms, obviously. I don't think there's too many devices that I can think of. But yeah, very like post-World War I, early 20th century, maybe late 19th century technology going around.
And that atmosphere is also carried by the orchestral background music.
Yeah, beautiful.
Absolutely gorgeous. Doesn't like... It's not like over present like a Christopher Nolan film, but it just I don't mean to tease it. It's just like Christopher Nolan clearly directs his movies around his soundtrack.
Yeah, and that's a whole subject we should definitely not talk about on here, but it's outside. It's buzzing in my brain. Continue.
Yeah, but yeah, this one like it clearly just lights the scene.
Yeah.
And yeah, it just kind of makes for this beautiful imagery following our beautiful main character, Violet Evergarden. For those who don't know, in this fictitious world that Violet lives in, there's a service called the Auto Memory Doll, which is nothing like it sounds.
Yeah, it sounds super like complex.
Like I'm taking your memories.
Yeah,
no, it is. It sounds like something from Black Mirror, actually.
Yeah,
but no, this one, the Auto Memory Doll is a service where usually young women.
It seems
exclusively a woman's job. Ghostwrite on behalf of others, often to write letters to other people to help express their emotions or convey a correspondence.
Yeah, feeling, whatever it be. It's just like a sort of... advanced postage service. You know, on top of the fact that they do, like, the business that Violet works for delivers them the letters as well, but they also have a little team of auto memory dolls that, you know, dole out their services to people.
And the interesting thing about that is that they give a brief history of the service, where the first couple were hired to help a man's wife who had, like, lost her sight, and she was a writer. So they were used expressly to, like, to just write what she said.
Yeah, like that's how they talk about the inception of the typewriter, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, in modern day, well, of the story, the auto memory dolls often give their own personality in their letters.
A little bit.
It seems like every one of them has, like, you can see from their design, they all have their own attitudes, and they're all very, like, they're not like little robots. They have their attitudes and they have their personalities, and it's kind of what's the word I'm looking for? It's kind of implied that each auto doll gives their own flair to their letters.
One of the dolls at Violet's firm, Catalea, I think it's from here. She's extremely popular, I'm sure, for other reasons than her.
Well, her appearance is very. We'll say it up front. Her appearance is very sexual.
Yeah,
she reminds me a lot of Christina Hendricks from Mad Men.
Yeah, you mentioned that.
Where she's like, it's sexual, but in a very dominating way, and not like a dominatrix, but just like proud of her
very
image,
confident, extremely
very confident.
Yeah,
and like she's hired a lot often to write these romantic letters between lovers.
And in auto memory dolls in general, like they all have like a uniform, but like they're very pretty outfits.
Yes,
like they're meant to be showy.
Yeah,
and like you said, in those uniforms you can see their personalities a little bit. I'm sure that kind of plays into like their marketing and like their little world, which is a nice little detail that we can kind of read into as audience members. But yeah, they all have their own distinct styles. Their job is still to convey the emotions and thoughts in the way that the client wants, but to the degree that they succeed, to the degree of how popular they are and how well they can do that, is definitely correlates to each of the dolls' styles.
Yeah, and where, like, the one we just mentioned, Kalita, she is, like, definitely hired for, like, romantic letters and those kind of things, whereas others might be more suited for, like, very one-to-one. Write up this bill for me. Write up this, simple request or stuff like that. But the reason why I even bring that up is because Violet is different from the rest of the girls. She is actually a veteran of the war that we mentioned.
Yeah, takes place in a post-war environment.
Yes. And she is a veteran from that. Not too old, maybe like just below the age of 20. Yeah. If not even like slightly younger. And she displays no sense of like personality.
Yeah, when we meet Violet, she's just kind of recovering from a heinous injury in the last battle of the war. The country of Leiden that she resides in is just won, and she's taken to the city of Leidenschaft by a former army lieutenant who's now going to be basically more or less her caretaker, or her guardian, you could call it whatever. And she just is extremely emotionally mute. Like, she's just conversationally really flat, takes everything really literally, does not display emotions in any fashion except when it comes to the Major Gilbert, yes, who she served under and is wondering where he is.
And so that introduction to the character sets up the series. Violet takes up a position as an auto memory doll to help her learn what love is and to understand what the Major last said to her in that last fight. And that just kind of sets us up for the whole rest of the series. Every other, the first 10 episodes, aside from the first and last two, all are centered around Violet taking up jobs as an auto memory doll and helping people convey their emotions and contradicting words through letters.
Yeah.
And it's really sweet and sincere, and that's what I kind of really enjoyed about this series. It didn't have any, like... It definitely had melodrama. Like, melodrama everywhere.
Lots of it, but in a weirdly believable way.
Because it's not paired with anything too fantastical.
Yeah.
Like, it's one thing when you have melodrama in Dragon Ball, and it's like, I just want to see these guys fight.
Yeah, yeah.
Whereas when you have melodrama in a show that's just about melodrama, like, that's kind of the appeal.
Mm-hmm. I can see that, yeah. It pairs well with the subject matter, and it's not used all the time. So if you had to pick out, like, one or two things of why you really liked Violet Evergarden, like the quintessential reasons why, what would they be?
Oh, honestly, it has a lot to do with just the setting of the show. Like, between, I guess setting is not the appropriate term, but just like the whole production.
You like Europe?
I like Europe. I really do like my early 20th century with a little dash of steampunk.
You like your homeland?
I like Ireland was never like that. But no, what I like about it is that it's just so charming. It really does remind me. You mentioned earlier that I said they were like Final Fantasy. And
yeah.
It just has this really not old world charm, but just like simpler time charm to it.
Yeah, the old
where people just dressed fancily, and everybody had their one job that they were very good at, and they did that, and that's how they paid for the bread. And it's very simple and straightforward, and that's what I appreciate about it. It allows us to explore very important but basic facets of like human life. As opposed to like a more modern setting that would go into like the intricate social constructs of modern sexual relationships or stuff like that. This is much more like, I like this guy and I don't know how to express myself.
Yeah, I don't think people were simpler back then, but because life was a lot more focused, I guess you might be able to say, like you were saying, like such more survival orientated, and everything was kind of not laid out, but like you said, ye olden times. I'm the bread maker. I'm the blacksmith. I'm the guy who delivers the postage. I'm the guy who beats up the criminals.
Yeah, I'm the guy who beats up the criminals. And then everybody's like, I'm looking for a wife. I'm looking for a husband. That is it. And it's just like, I don't know. It's just straightforward. Like, there's none like, oh, I like this guy and I've been dating him for years, but I don't know if I want to be tied down because of modern, like...
Yeah. There's all the sociological... constraints where it's like, I'm a working woman and I want to date this guy, but he doesn't make enough money. It's
long and short, it's a very pleasant watch.
Yeah.
Like, you can just sit back and enjoy this beautiful imagery with this fantastic orchestral background music and just kind of enjoy it.
Yeah, atmospherically, aesthetically, Violet Evergarden is probably one of the most enjoyable anime I can remember. Just purely on that merit, it would be a top 5 anime for setting for me. Like, for setting, for music, especially for animation. But yeah, definitely I resonate with what you are saying.
Okay. You sound like if I asked you the question of what's your favorite part about this anime, you have a different answer though.
No, it would be in queue with what you said. I don't know if it would be that would be the end all be all, because that is a huge part of the appeal, honestly. Like Violet, the world that she exists in is very charming. The music is beautiful. It's like we mentioned earlier, it's scored very classically. And the characters are all designed very well. But I would say it's probably the writing.
Okay.
That probably keeps me coming back. Because like we said, the anthology series that Violet is set up in, and the way that it corresponds to how, the way it relates to Violet's progression as a character, I think is really smartly done. And I feel like it helps tug our heartstrings two ways in each episode. One, in the way that Violet helps the client break through and communicate their feelings and get over whatever what ails them, and then how it relates to Violet and her journey to learn what love means. And that part, the feelsy part, is probably my favorite part of Violet.
So that's interesting, because when I was looking at the Wikipedia entry for this series, it started as a light novel. It described its genre as coming of age, which I was kind of surprised to see.
Yeah, it's loosely coming of age, in my opinion. But you, I think, have a more fleshed out idea of that, do you?
I think it just gets caught in the umbrella of the term coming of age because we are following Violet's emotional growth through the series. So it works in that regard. And I guess she also finds her purpose and reason, so that kind of helps it as well. It's funny because like I read that and I'm like, I feel like that's every anime we watch. It's some sort of coming of age story.
So many are focused around the youth, so like I can't say that a majority of anime, definitely fall under the umbrella.
Like we watched Rascal Does Not Dream of Bunny. What else have we watched recently? We watched those two movies. We watched Summer Wars, as well as what is it called? Bluebird or Blue Jay?
Liz and the Bluebird?
Liz and the Bluebird, which is also somewhat of a coming of age.
Yeah, but they're all focused around like young people ascending.
Right.
And Violet is like that, but I don't feel like it's about her evolving out of youth. Like, coming of age is a weird term to me, because I feel like the majority of character arcs in stories are focused around Joseph Campbell's hero's journey.
Yeah.
And would you say that everything that follows that cycle, that 12-step cycle, is a coming of age story? Because I don't think so. Because, like, if you look at, let's just take a random movie like Guardians of the Galaxy,
Sure.
and then you have characters in that story that have character progression. Like, you have the outlaw Star-Lord by the end, ending as the hero Star-Lord of Guardians of the Galaxy.
Yeah.
You know, reconciling his mother's death and all that other hoo-ha that comes in between his cowardice and all that, and becoming like a noble hero by the end.
Yes.
That's not a coming of age. I mean, you could say it shares similarities to coming of age story. I wouldn't call it a coming of age story. And in the same way, I wouldn't call Violet Evergarden's story a coming of age story. Or by
the difference being, though, is like, let's take your example, Guardians of the Galaxy. Peter, his character development is learning how to be a leader, as well as understanding, like, there's the fictional element of him understanding his own, like, power and, like, how he can use that. That's, like, it's very minor character development, but it does exist there.
Yeah.
It's more the development of the team as a whole.
Yeah.
That's the character arc of the movie.
Mm-hmm.
Meanwhile, a coming-of-age story is usually a person's journey, a person's hero's journey, but at the end they come to understand their place in the world. Like, that's the coming of age part.
Interesting. Okay.
And so I think Violet kind of fits in there.
I guess she does.
Because she's learning her place in a post-war world.
Yes. Because that's
where she doesn't know anything but war.
Yeah. That's what the Major wanted for her. Like, after, like, when in their last moments together, he says, "I love you." But before that, he also says, "I want you to live a life beyond this. I want you to live a happy life." She doesn't know what that entails. Yes. She's very obsessed about the Major and, like, what he meant by "I love you," but just as much, this whole story, this whole animated series' journey for Violet is about discovering what that life is.
Yeah.
What he wished for her.
And in fact, we continue to see it because oftentimes in her first couple letters that she writes, it's described as militaristic.
Oh yeah, it's just like, it's a report.
But that's like a very specific adjective for the writers to have people describe her as, because it's showing that she has not left the war.
Yeah, but then she's always, that's true. She's living in that time beyond of before, but she's also always grown up in that environment. Like,
right.
She's a child soldier.
And that's the reason why it's so difficult for her.
Yeah.
And at the same time, that also reflects the world around her. Mm-hmm. That's just coming out of this war and just starting to heal from the wounds of it.
The war in itself and, like, the trauma post-war, I think that in of itself is something that the story interestingly explores. This could be called a war story.
Absolutely.
In a whole.
Yeah.
Because
it's this thing that, like, we don't ever see the front lines of, except for, like, an episode or two.
Yeah.
But we always feel its presence throughout. And that's very interesting. Because oftentimes in anime, we're either in school or we're either in battles. We're rarely in just day-to-day life of people.
And yeah, like, the transition from wartime life to everyday life is a very difficult transition. I hear from veterans all the time. Like, not personally, but, like,
one of the best examples of that, even though it's not the movie's entire focus, is Hurt Locker.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
Yeah, those accounts of, like, not being able to come back, like, Hurt Locker, how Jeremy Renner's character literally cannot go back to his normal social life.
Picking out celery.
Yeah.
Cereal.
Yeah. Where instead he just takes up another tour because that's all he knows. Partially because he's a thrill seeker, but at the same time, it's psychologically changed him forever. Those changes you have to live with, and those are the burns her guardian referred to as that trauma and how it scarred her and how it's changed her and how it's something that she needs to one day reconcile.
So yeah, that's like, it's despite being a coming of age story, or maybe in part because it is, it's a very mature subject matter. And do you think it would resonate with the modern anime audience? It has, obviously. It's already pretty popular.
In a way, yeah. I really don't know. I can't gauge how popular it is. I don't think I've had conversations about
outside of this one. Yeah.
Outside of you and, like, some, like, very small amount of people and, like, random accounts on our anime and some people on YouTube, but it's like, I really don't know how popular it is because it's not fluffy, you know? It doesn't have that, like you were saying, it covers very serious subject matter, and at the same time, I think the appeal is in like that emotional euphoria.
Yeah, the appeal of it is in the healing of those harsh realities.
Yeah,
and the acceptance and the coming of age part of it.
Yeah, I don't think it's a subject matter that keeps people away. I think it's honestly the very simplistic. I don't know what would keep people away, honestly, because like the setting may seem a little mundane, but it's illustrated so beautifully and animated so beautifully, and it has an amazing score behind it that like once you turn it on, I think it's wonderful. I think the only thing that would turn anybody off from Violet Evergarden is the pilot. It is very slow, and it is very much just laying foundation for the entirety of the series. Once you kind of get into Violet and you're hopping around all the vignettes of episodes, where like one day she's helping a princess, the next day she's in an observatory, the other day she's helping a playwright. Like those are very easy for people to kind of latch onto, but you just have to wait. I think like this is like an anime that really necessitates a 3 or 4 episode rule. Like you hear that a lot. Like you need to give an anime a few episodes to really distinguish itself, and I think this is one that honestly needs it. Yeah,
I would even put this above like. Because when we talk about anime, I think, let's say we're talking to, like, the layman, right?
Yeah.
And we say, I watch anime. Like, people would often think of Dragon Ball and, like, a lot of the stuff we've covered on this
Shonen,
podcast.
Naruto, Shonen. Sailor Moon, whatever.
And I think this transcends those really well. Not transcends. Transcends is a bad word. I believe this show is is not in that category.
No, not at all.
Not at all. And I think this is one that's much more approachable to a mass audience.
Really?
Yeah, because I think it's just like it tells a story that is just that might resonate with a lot more people than the average shonen. This goes beyond just young male audiences.
Yeah, never mind. Okay, now I'm starting to vibe with you picking up. Yeah, because like shonen targets, like you were saying, a very specific audience.
Yeah,
young adult males. Typically,
it just so happens that when they grew up, they didn't grow out of it.
Yeah.
So the audience grew.
PSA: you like shonen, you're attached to something from your youth. That's okay.
We
are as well. But this is for something, the subjects within Violet, and in a lot of anime that are kind of overlooked these days, that aren't as popular, is because they don't tackle that specific niche.
Yeah, the power fantasy.
Yeah.
Within a relatable character.
Yeah, this is more of a very unrelatable. This is
more of an emotional journey.
Yes.
Yeah. And that's what I think I just find so appealing about it. I would recommend this to somebody who hasn't seen any anime or has no actual interest in the stereotypical anime. I'm putting big air quotes there.
You know what? I think that'd be a really interesting...
because whenever somebody says, like, I'm thinking of getting into anime, and they're only doing it because, like, they've heard people talk about it, I say, okay, start with Cowboy Bebop.
Everyone I know has ever said that would be the
I would
show.
also put this one on the list.
Okay, we're speaking from the context of us living in North America, too. And I feel like the Western aesthetic of anime is very different to the appeal of Eastern anime as well.
Okay.
Or Eastern audiences, I should say.
Yeah. Go on.
Because, like, I don't think... Because, as I understand it, Bebop does not have the reverence it does.
Yes, it does.
In the East, does it?
I mean, maybe not as much. You're thinking of Samurai Champloo. Samurai Champloo failed in the East. Cowboy Bebop did very well.
I think it's because Samurai Champloo is because of hip-hop. Maybe.
We don't need a reason. We just need to know what did and didn't work.
I guess, yeah.
That can be a whole other podcast.
Supposedly, yeah.
As to why Samurai Champloo failed in the East.
Yeah. That's a friggin' great anime.
Yeah, it's great. If Cowboy Bebop did not exist, it would probably be my favorite.
I agree. But yeah. Oh, God. Okay, but yeah, no, I would definitely put Violet as something I would definitely recommend. Now that you kind of explained it a little bit, I can nom onto the idea because... so many of the scenarios that Violet interacts with for these people are very relatable. Like, you resonate with the clients because they all kind of have situations that you've been in at some point in your life, most likely. Unrequited love, dealing with turbulence with a family member, the death of a loved one. The list goes on, but it's a lot of emotional turmoil that we can all relate to.
At least one of those episodes will resonate with somebody.
Yeah, at least one. And if you haven't personally experienced
then
any of those
emotionally
experiences,
dead.
what if that too, your cold, dead heart needs to meet Violet, and then two, you probably met somebody at least who's gone through it. You've experienced it by proxy.
Yeah.
So
no, I greatly appreciate this one. I think it's definitely earned a place on my top 5.
For sure, for sure.
Speaking of which, like a little heads up, I think our next couple of podcasts are going to be Brando and I's top 5.
Yes.
So we've already kind of knocked out one of mine.
Yeah, more or less, and maybe mine too. I don't know. Like I told you, you're struggling to summon anything. I'm struggling. I'm struggling to cut from a larger list.
So much.
But that's a
subject for another time.
Yeah, literally a subject for another time. So, end all be all. Final comment. Go.
Oh my goodness, on my shoulders. Please go watch this. I am shocked at how much I enjoyed this series, and it's made me very nostalgic for another series, Final Fantasy. This is a bad last comment, but
no, it's
absolutely
fine.
Gorgeous.
Yeah,
That's how I would describe it.
It makes sense. Like,
oh, actually, last question. I'm gonna cut you off.
Go.
We're gonna whatever. Last question. Why does Japan like drawing battle girls that are blonde and blue-eyed?
I don't know.
We got Cammy. We got
Blade was her name from Fate.
Yeah, Blade.
We
got now Violet Evergarden.
Yeah.
There's got to be Alita's more. Not blonde, but there's so much. Nina Williams.
Yeah. Well, I think they just like blonde-haired, blue-eyed women.
That's fair. It's a strong character. I mean, Street Fighter V is now full of them.
And we've mentioned before in
Android 18
in casual conversation, you and I feel like there's a certain like. I liked Alita, and I like a lot of those characters specifically. Well, specifically Alita, I'm going to go into that. And Violet is a good parallel, loosely, where there's this very gentle idealist. For Alita, it's a very gentle idealistic soul that has like this undercurrent of the capacity for extreme violence and aggression. And I like that dichotomy. The contrast, I think, is an interesting one. And the same thing with Violet, because she's such a gentle person, honestly, like, and very sensitive, especially when she kind of gathers her emotions. But yet, despite all that, she's been used as this very gruesome tool of war. Like, she's literally just called the Battle Maiden of Leiden. To see her in action, in the small moments that they give you, where she's just, like, ripping dudes apart, in very gruesome ways.
Yeah, not overtly, though. For those who just don't like gruesome stuff, they always cut away.
Yeah, but still, that undercurrent of violence. I don't know if it's like a defiling of the innocence, or if it's like just the interesting contrast of that. I don't know why Japan does it.
Yeah,
but it is an interesting one. It's one that I think that draws conversation. I'll have to definitely come back to this and think about why, because honestly, I don't know.
Definitely an interesting idea, but
one for another time.
One for another time. And I believe that is all for us today.
That is all. We hope you guys made it and enjoyed our conversation today. If there's anything that we missed, shout us down below. Give us a comment on what you thought of Violet Evergarden if you got a chance to see it. And if you have seen it, and if there's anything that we missed, anything you wanted to talk about, let us know. Give us a like. Ring the bell. Throw a subscribe if you had a good time. And as always, have a good day. Have a good life. And we will see you next time.